How'd you get here so fast?
Oh,
Will the clerk please read the meeting statement?
adequate notice of this regular meeting was provided to the public and the press on January 17, 2024, and was posted at the municipal building in accordance with the Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-7.
Thank you. Please join with me and pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sherry.
Here.
Councilmember Di Benedetto. Present. Councilmember Higgins.
Here.
Councilmember Sparta.
Present.
Council President Rizzuto.
Here. Thank you very much. I would manage to misplace it. We have a proclamation. Whereas public work services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of this understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public work systems and programs such as streets and roadways, parks, sewers, recycling, and public facilities. And whereas the health and safety and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of work they perform. And now therefore, I, Anthony Rossi, Mayor of the Township of Vernon, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through May 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week in the Township of Vernon. And I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Items for discussion. I've asked for the issue of consideration of Zoom meetings and its necessity to be placed on the agenda. Now, that's not to say that we're going to discontinue that type of meeting, other than the fact that it will be a live stream, doing away with the phone calls. I open the meeting. Members of the council, if you have any consideration and if you think your feelings on this should be. Mr. Higgins, sir?
Yeah, I'm in favor of Zoom meetings, in favor of public participation, whether they're here live or on Zoom.
Right.
And I think if it's managed properly, limited in time and policed so that people don't take shots at each other and just stay to the facts, it's an effective method of running a meeting.
I have two concerns with the ordinance right now. And one is, I don't know if it's with the ordinance or how it's advertised, but right now it's advertised as a hybrid meeting. And if we have issues with whether it be internet or power in the town, not so much the municipal building, but if we have a large section of town that experiencing issues with either internet or power, do we have to stop our meeting or can we continue? And I have no problem with it being advertised as a meeting with the Zoom live streaming, as Mr. Higgins said. But I don't think the business of the town should stop if there is something that's out of our control. And at what point do we say that? I mean, is it a section of town or is it a group of 10 homes or is it? It's kind of open for interpretation.
From a legal standpoint, just, towns throughout New Jersey are doing a variety of different things, kind of post-COVID. So some of them continue to have fully interactive, meetings. A lot more of them, at least the ones I've been exposed to, seem to be going more towards, hey, we'll still live stream everything. Because that seems to be kind of here to stay in most places, not everywhere. There's still some towns that have gone back to, you have a meeting, if you want to see it, you better be here to see it, period. So there is that, but I think a lot more towns are in the range of saying, hey, we'll live stream it. So for people who can't make it, they can still watch. But if they want to, speak at the meeting, then they have to come and they can either send their comments by email. Hey, if they can't make a meeting, just like they would now. If you can't make a meeting, you can email, you can call up somebody, you can, and obviously there's policy pros and cons, which for all of you to debate. Legally, when people ask my legal advice, I usually advise to go to the streaming, non-interactive method for the issue that you raised, which is if you advertise it as a completely hybrid meeting and there is an issue, it starts getting into a gray area of, if a resident says, well, you told me it was a hybrid, and let's say it's less of an issue of, let's say, the power outside going down.
Right.
It's more of an issue where I've seen towns have technical difficulties on their end.
We've had
For
that
some
happen.
reason,
We've had that.
for
We've
some
had that
reason,
happen.
your internet just doesn't work today. We all know that happens for some, I'm not a computer person, but there's some reason why all of a sudden that
Yep.
stops. And when that happens, if you've advertised it as a hybrid meeting, you may not be able to have a meeting.
Right.
Because you've told people that they can participate virtually and now they can't. There's no law, it's kind of post-COVID, it's not, there may be an argument that you could go forward, but if you do, anything you do at that meeting opens itself up to being
Because we
challenged, so.
we had a situation, it was last February, I think, Natalie was council president. We had a Zoom meeting because of weather.
Mhm.
We, rather than cancel, we decided to
Yep.
do just a Zoom. And, I think somebody or a group of people lost their internet connection and it was like all of a sudden our phones start buzzing. Internet dropped out. It's like, well, do we have to stop the meeting? And yet it was only one person who dropped out, so.
Yeah, and I think in that instance, not to, I don't know what your prior attorney advised, so whatever he said was probably right, but if it came up with me, I would say, listen, if it's one resident who has a problem, you're probably okay because it's on their end. I would be more concerned about anything on our end. Bad weather, you try to do it, by Zoom, but now we have a problem.
Yeah. That happened to us
or-
twice.
Yeah,
When Pat and I
So-
first got on the
so-
council, that happened to us twice.
so that
We
would
had to
be,
cancel meetings.
yeah, so that would be, legally, I like the non-interactive
Non-hybrid.
version, only because you avoid those issues. At that point in time, if people want to watch the meetings, they can watch the meetings. And then they can send you the emails later on that night or the next day and say, I can't believe you did this. Why did you say that? Or if they know they can't make the meeting in person, if they have something that's that crucial, they could do the same thing, right? They can email everybody ahead of time. But like I said, towns do it differently. That's the policy considerations. Legally, the risk you run is that you do have to stop a meeting, or can't have one because of it.
The other issue I have, and I brought up about a month ago, and it's has to do with AI and dubbing voices and stuff like that. So right now, anybody who calls in, they just need to have their name on the screen. And that's it. So can we, through our policy, make it where they need to have their picture up in a live video? Because as Council President Rizzuto is gonna have to determine in a nanosecond if it is Joe Smith who is actually talking, or is it a dub voice? And then that dub voice can go on and say slanderous things about anybody, and we've provided a form for that to happen. So is that something that we can put in our policy that if we do continue with public comment, that they must have their cameras on? And if they refuse to have their cameras on, that we can not click on their thing to talk and then we are in the clear?
Yeah, I think you could do that, within region, just like you can control, the forum here, people have to come up to the microphone, they gotta give the name and address. There's certain kind of protocol.
No address anymore, 'cause
Yeah.
No address,
Daniel's
but
law.
yeah, name, but you could, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do the same thing with virtual, as long as it's properly, you kind of notice that, hey, here are the rules, just like here,
Mhm.
here's kind of the rules of public. If you do want to comment virtually, then, you have to have your camera on.
State your name.
State your name and, you could put a disclaimer, try to head off the solo issues that you raised
Mhm.
before. It says, hey, if you have a problem on your end, essentially that's not our problem. So if you do participate this way, if it's your issue with your technology, that risk is on you, that you are gonna not be able to hear us. So I think you could probably do that if we amended bylaws, or I don't know what the operative document is here,
Yeah.
but ordinance said.
By the way, AI will be on the agenda the next week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Oh,
for
cool.
discussion, so, but
Oh, okay.
since you seem to be the one that has more knowledge in it. Interesting question. Listening to something with the news things. And, oh, yeah, it was, I think it was Senator Kennedy. Wanted to make, not an issue, but demanded an answer as to whether or not people had the right to know that that a piece of legislation or any portion of
Mhm.
legislation or any type of written document was generated by a robot.
Mm,
As to
yeah.
whether or not that's something that has happened. I don't know if I want to get into an argument.
No,
Maybe
no,
because I don't know if I
yeah,
want to be
yeah.
able to say I lost to a robot.
Do you have a comment,
Yeah,
Marcy?
Council President, can I comment?
Certainly.
Thank you. I run the meetings. It's not easy. It's actually very stressful because of situations where if I can't get on or, we've had people with their hand up who their hand went down and then their hand went back up and then, I didn't call on them or just technical issues, which I feel are on their end, because I always call if I see hands up. Right now I have people on that I just see a phone number. I have someone with a D, that's their name, D. I have a JT, I have iPhone 6. So
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that, Samsung SMX 200. So, if you say you have to sign on and you have to use a camera, you're gonna have the same problem as I don't have a camera. It's not fair. Not everybody has a camera on their computer.
I was gonna say,
And, I don't know when it's gonna end, where somebody, who is trying to get on is gonna not be able to, follow any new, policy that we might make.
yeah, I don't think making video required is going to work. I think we would probably just have to end the public
I mean,
participation.
and I also, if we have 100 people on here with their cameras on, the dais, what you're gonna see is a little square.
Oh, yeah.
Of the
I see what you're
dais.
saying, Yeah.
I think
Everything's
it only
gonna
goes
have-
to like a 12 panel, doesn't it?
It just, it depends on, I guess, how many people you have on and, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it's gonna look like, so.
Okay.
Well,
No.
I'm only required, I would only ask the people who are gonna call in.
And
to be on
actually
the camera,
talk.
Not that anybody who's attending who just wants to listen, I don't think
Wanna
that's
talk.
necessary. I
Yeah.
think it's more from, if the person is actually calling in to speak, I think you need to verify that it's actually them speaking, not just with a black screen with a name on it.
That they change 50 times during the meeting.
Well, that's it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you probably could, if you were gonna go that route, which, again, well, you all know what my opinion is on it, but if you were gonna go the route of still having the Zoom, but you wanted to put more restrictions, yeah, I think you would want to limit it to just, who's actually speaking, but you do run the risk. It's a good point about, well, hey, I, obviously everyone has, well, everyone, but a lot of people have Zoom on their phone. well, you get in a situation, well, what about the people who are in the car? They
Mm.
want to call in and speak, but,
Mhm.
are you gonna tell them, well, you can't? Or are they gonna turn their camera on and now it's pointed up at the roof of their car? Cause,
Yeah, it's a danger.
The camera's
danger,
on, but
yeah,
I
it's a
mean.
danger.
Getting an accident.
No
Get an
one with them-
accident,
no one with them
yeah,
holding it up
that's
while they're
not good.
driving, or their passengers.
One thing to this.
Mhm.
Also, if you go with the video, you don't worry about what is in their background. That may be,
That's a good-
Entertaining, Anthony.
you know,
Good. Wait, are there no like First Amendment implications if we require someone to turn on their video camera to speak?
I don't think there's First Amendment, if you require it. I haven't seen any towns do what's being talked about right now, which is to have the Zoom, the interactive Zoom, but then put,
Other layers
other
on top.
restrictions on
Right.
it. So I don't know that you can't do it.
Okay.
As a general matter, from a First Amendment perspective, as long as it is, viewpoint neutral, and you're trying to mimic essentially, if somebody's here, right, if they're in the, like, right now, we don't know who all the people in the audience, well, maybe you guys do. I don't know who all the people in the audience are. They're not required to say, here's my name and here's why I'm here. They can just listen, and sometimes
Mhm.
folks do that, right? But if they come up, you see them,
We require
presumably
their
know who
name.
they are,
Yeah, we
their
require
name,
their name.
and
Yep.
you may not be able to confirm when they say I'm Joan Smith that you have their actually confirm as saying who they are, but at least there's a
There's a
some-
level of.
Right.
level that, not gonna come up and give a false name. At least if they do, we know what they look like. You can kind of later.
Yeah.
So I think you probably could, without running afoul of any kind of First Amendment issue, say you have to turn your camera on. What you run the risk of is not, like I say, a First Amendment, that standpoint, but equal protection. So equal protection is putting people into two different
Mhm.
groups of folks and treating them differently.
Mhm.
And I think that's where you could run into the situation of one group of people has access to a camera and is stationary and one group doesn't. And is that some sort of disparate treatment where we're letting these people speak and not these
Mhm.
people because of a technology basis? Now, I'd argue no, and it's a rational basis and it's a different legal standard, so I think you'd be okay.
Because they could still
But-
come and show up in person.
Correct.
Right,
But
they
that
could
would be,
still-
the argument would be, not that you can't make people do it, but the people who aren't able to do it,
At a
are they
disadvantage.
singling them out
Yeah.
because they are lower income and they don't have the higher technology computers, and so you may open yourselves up for other issues, but generally you can control the forum. So you can say,
Mhm.
I think you'd win on those claims, but do you want to fight about it in court?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you want to try it, I'm
Yeah.
happy to do it, but I think there's some.
No.
I mean, I've been a supporter of the Zoom and I think I've been how did he phrase it? A bitter clinger, right? Like, isn't that what Obama said years ago? Because I like the transparency. I am concerned with issues where we're not able to continue with township business, as Brad has brought up, and we have experience because of that on 2 occasions. So some type of middle ground where there is still transparency, and if the public wishes to still see what's going on at a public meeting but isn't able to get here, and having that Zoom option, but perhaps not advertising it as a hybrid, so that if there is a technology issue, whether it's half the town has lost power, but we still have it here, or we don't have it here, we're still able to carry on a meeting. I don't like the idea of not being able to continue township business. As far as, the other discussion of the AI and ensuring that we have someone who is not, I guess, a bad actor, someone could pretend to be another member of the community, right? Like there's definitely some a possibility that could happen. And that doesn't address the loss of internet access or power again. Like, so if we continue with the Zoom option, but require some different parameters for public comment, so we can confirm that person is truly who they say they are, it doesn't address losing power. So I guess we just need to, I see both sides. I'm still, I liked the transparency. I like people having access to our meetings. Not everyone's able to get out in the evening, with family responsibilities, work, children, activities. So I definitely would never want to not have a streaming option. I think, I guess I would just want to discuss with, the council and see which way we want to go.
There's also been legal issues with people, not the AI impersonating, but where they, pranksters, people trying to hack a meeting from, all of a sudden kind of take over the feed and they drop in, pornographic.
Yeah.
It
images
happened
pop
during
up.
the Vernon Coalition meeting during
Right,
COVID.
so you have that kind of stuff that happens too, not the impersonation issues, but all of a sudden now, and then I get back into if you no longer have if you've advertised it as a hybrid meeting and you no longer do that, you may have to shut down the meeting because of that. That's
Yeah.
happened, I mean, there have been,
That has literally happened.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I don't want to
The
say
township
that, right,
meeting.
yeah, and that's happened in a lot of places. It's not common, but you've heard about that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Yeah,
If someone has a question, they can chat, can write out their question without being able to speak, I guess.
that would still, no, we don't allow that.
We had the chat and people were on chat fighting with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We had that on the BOE too. We had.
had it and
Yeah.
I would actually take a picture of it on my phone just to show whoever, because it was like they were literally fighting back and forth.
That also
Not a
becomes
good
an issue
option.
with
That's not good.
government records
No.
in terms of if people are in a chat, to what extent do we have to somehow preserve? Is that part of a public meeting record?
Yeah.
With people chatting. So my recommendation would be if you want to do the interactive version, then you do the interactive version either as you have it now or with some disclaimers, like we're talking about, or the streaming is just to watch. So if you want to watch, you can sit at home in your kitchen while your kids are having dinner and you can have the meeting on as your television to participate. But if you want to be able to interact, then you need to be in person, or it's just Zoom like it is now. And it's
Let's remember where this, prior to COVID, pre-COVID, everybody was not required, if you wanted to address the council, you came to the meeting. There was no calling in a question. As a matter of fact, we sat here one night as a council for over almost 3 hours, listening to emails
I read
that were
them.
called in from all over the country and you couldn't tell where. So we had to address that. And then with the COVID situation, because of health concerns, people were given an option or presented with a way of having public meetings that were available to the public through live streaming and allowing them to question their government with questions over the phone due to COVID. Now that seems to have subsided to the point of most of the townships are leaving the hybrid type meetings and going back to live streaming, or staying with live streaming. I think that's a very good way of being, meeting that compromise, because people may not be able to come out and go to a meeting. And if they do want to address the council at a later date, they can come to a meeting and address those concerns. And for those that do have a problem with transportation, remember, the word clerk means somebody that acts on behalf of the council, and receiving mail, through the either traditional way, snail mail, or putting it into an email and having it presented, there is always that potential and there's that possibility. And those are normally read. I know when I was on the Board of Education, we did that then. and I presume they probably do this as well now. So I think live streaming covers the concern for transparency. Asking the question back and forth doesn't create an issue of, resolve that issue of transparency. It simply shows an interaction. But when we say transparency, you're looking at the passage of legislation, of questioning of the council to the administration being done in a manner that is available for the public to see live time, live stream. So that's my concern. I think it also avoids getting into a back and forth where in situations where the council really has no way of determining an outcome. We have no way to affect a resolution of compromise. It's simply, we would have to sit here and say, yeah, or whatever, or something like that, So that's my concern. So unless anybody has anything else to say, I mean, we can move it forward. I'll make sure we can put it on the agenda for consideration on a passage.
Yeah.
See how it, and how council, what's the council's feeling?
The only other question I would have to build upon that would be, don't we advertise all of our meetings at the start of the year?
I would just
Re-advertise.
So you just have to re-advertise it
Does it change?
if we change the ordinance.
Okay.
Matt, can I ask you one other
course.
question? If we advertise it as just a live stream and we have technology issues, we could still have.
Yes, we can work out the wording, but essentially what we would simply say is here's you have your official legal notice.
Mhm.
And then there's some language that you can use, say, it'll be available live stream solely for the purpose of
Yeah.
doing it, and it's not,
Okay.
it's an extra.
It's an
We're not
extra.
legally required to
Yes,
do it.
to do
It's
it.
not and so there's ways of doing that.
Thank you. Any more?
I'm good.
Good conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mayor's comments. Mayor Russ.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to run through a bunch of things that I just jotted down quickly. I do apologize for being a couple of minutes late here. One of the things I wanted to say is Happy Mother's Day to her and
Thank you.
everybody else.
Thank you.
And also Happy Mother's Day to all the moms in Vernon. I hope you guys had a great day yesterday. Last week, we had several great things happen in Vernon on, again, I'm just gonna run through. So just a little heads up on April 24th, myself, Fire Commissioner John Kosh, along with other members of the Highland Lakes Fire Department, picked up that fire tanker in Marlboro, New Jersey. We were greeted by Mayor James Basaki and several members of the Marlboro Fire Department who have loaned us their fire tanker at zero cost. While we wait for our new one to be delivered, they even gave us a full tank of gas, so thank you. We were kind of betting on that one night. I think they gave us a full tank. So especially when that truck probably gets 4 miles to the gallon, but they offered us this tanker for as long as we need it. We immediately brought this tanker to DPW to do a full inspection. Everything pretty much checked out. We did a couple of maintenance items on the truck at little cost. But the feedback that I've been getting from the fire department, which is they're using this truck today, has been overwhelmingly great. The tanker drives perfectly and they couldn't be happier. So good for those guys. On April 25th was Bring Your Child to Work Day. Thank you for organizing it. Children had a blast from early morning bagels with a cop, visiting the animal shelter, sitting in large DPW trucks. And then we threw them all in jail. So thank you for all that participated. The kids really did have a blast. And thanks to the police department again, DPW, for your time. On April 25th, we had our re-grand opening of Hef's Hut. They invested a lot of money in the interior and also they have redesigned their entire menu, which is really good. So check it out. On April 27th, we had our Blue Star Memorial, which was a huge success. So thank you to all, thank you, Michelle, from the rec department, and former Mayor Burrell for initiating this memorial and for joining us. Also, thank you to our DPW for getting that park ready on that special day where we got to honor our men and women of our armed force services. I had the privilege, again, to honor so many of our own employees who have served, and some of them still serve. Again, thank you again for your service. On April 28th, the grand opening of Black Cone Barbershop in Highland Lakes just opened. Kathy, the owner, she's been cutting my hair for years, which I'm due again. And also she does facial shavings, which is something you don't see very often. So guys, you may want to check that out. So I do wish her the best of luck. May 5th, we had our annual 5K run, which benefits local families in need. This year, the money will benefit, excuse me, I may mess up the name, Darius Michael Zabakish. Darius is a 6th grader at Glen Meadow who has gone through 12 life-threatening surgeries in his life so far. So unfortunately, I was not able to attend this event, but if you'd like to donate, please contact the PAL. On May 8th, we have finally broken ground excuse me, on the 55 unit building, 55 and older. This type of development is exactly what Vernon needed. Not only for the tax rateable, but for the most needed, the much needed sewer EDUs. So many people would like to stay in Vernon after they retire without having to worry about trying to maintain their property. This is going to be a beautiful building. And it's been a pleasure so far to work with these developers. And again, I look forward to working with them in the future. Monkeys told me that this building should be done within 18 months. They are working on their website, so you can register to secure one of these units. I will post that website once completed. These developers will also be the ones to build out our Main Street. So we will want to have a downtown. So as those properties develop, you can look on that. On May 10th, we had another grand opening for a new business called Alice Brew Works. They're a craft beer company, serving many different flavors of beer, which is a great addition to Vernon. They are located across the street from Maccabee Hardware Store. Again, come check them out. Also note that Planet Network is now accepting customers in Highland Lakes and soon Barry Lakes for high-speed internet via fiber. I know WBT is investing in our town as well, but I haven't heard of anything on their progress. So again, they are investing in fiber network, fiber cabling to our town, and I think a lot of people are pretty excited about that. Another hot topic is Legends. I have some updates for you. I said it from the beginning when I first told you that it's sold. 2 weeks ago, I arranged a meeting with the buyer and with our attorney, Matthew Jessup. Not this Matthew, but our attorney, along with our CFO. The buyer and I are planning on a joint press release the end of June to discuss what the future of that building will become and also the 3 phases of construction. We did meet last week with their construction team and some of our officials here to just to connect the dots. So after that meeting, our attorney has contacted the buyer's attorney and reported back to me that the sale was legal. I also said that this transaction will take some time to complete because there are over 600 tax lien properties inside that building. This is not a simple one-on-one purchase. The buyer has actually hired a company to help clean those titles up. An expected time frame for completion is the end of July. I'd probably give it to August, but just that was the time frame we were given. So I guess that's the big question. When we get online, so I think so hopefully again the July, August. So as you can see, Vernon is no longer sitting still. We are moving forward. We're all fired up here in Vernon. We are very excited to see so many people go back to Vernon and feedback on our new business-friendly initiative, which is really our new mindset, attitude, willingness to work with investors on top, having business who can provide assistance when in need, and the feedback has been overwhelming. This has even sparked the surrounding towns. Last week, on the radio station WGHT 98.3 FM, And they were pretty excited to hear Vernon seems to be moving forward, so, I didn't put anything out on that one, it was kind of it was a quick scheduling thing, so, it was pretty cool to be on the meeting, so. And finally, we have the presentation of the budget. We've been working on this for months. We went line by line item with each department ahead, and I questioned everything. We continue to deep dive into the budget to see where we can save money. We look to where we can cut, and where we look to where we can hold off on certain items. I feel we did a great job, and I'm very proud and thankful for staff who's helped us get us here today. So thank you, Tina. Also, one more thing, I also want to touch on the shared service agreement with the Board of Ed. So when I was running for office, I said a few things on my campaign trail. One of those things I said was I want to work with the board, I would work with the Board of Ed and find ways to help reduce costs and extend our shared services without sacrificing needed services for the children. After election day, it was around early December, a meeting was set up at the request of the Board of Ed, with Russell Robbins, along with my business administrator, Tina Kraus, and CFO, Danelle Wright. I was pretty excited to hear that the Board of Ed has actually opened the door for us to have these discussions. First time I met Russ, I remember him saying to me, we were walking down the hallway, I remember this clear, he said, Mayor-elect, he goes, we are here today because you said you would work with the Board of Ed on ways to save money. So we discussed many ways we can try to save money, such as snow plowing, parking lot sweeping, parking lot patching, catch basins, repairs, and cleaning and maintenance, sewer operating, removal, and assist with maintenance and repairs to the Board of trucks, garbage pickup, and so on. Maybe I would put grant writing too. So we discussed the use of the Board of Ed's licensed electricians and plumbers, so we can use their help around town on specific projects, which we did just recently, use their help. You know, we can't cover all these services that I mentioned at the moment, but it covers many areas where we can build back each other for time and material, but we will get there in due time. We have made a lot of progress in just a few short months. You know, they say actions speak louder than words, and the shared service agreement that's on the agenda today in finance has proven the actions that actions did happen, and that for the first time, I believe in Vernon history, that we are finally acting. The Board of Ed and my administration will keep looking for ways to help each other save money for the betterment of our taxpayers. The shared service, which has already been through the Board of Ed's legal office as well as the township's legal office, it's Matt, have both agreed to the terms set forth, and thanks to the council's job to pass it. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Was a notable visit to Alias, the new brewery. I hadn't had a beer in 62 years. The last time I had a sip of the beer was when my son was born. And I found out that I really didn't care for beer, maybe belch. So, but I didn't want to be a bad visitor to Alias, and the owners there are really, really nice. And they schooled me in some different types of beers, and I had one based on a apple cider. And I found out also something that was interesting, that state of New Jersey requires all beers to be 51% malt. I didn't know that. Why would I? So I tasted it, was very good, very cold. They have a unique cooling system that maintains the temperature of the beer in the vats within, I think, a 2 to 3 degree range. And the valves automatically cut in and out and move the glycol around the cooling system and turn it off and turn it on when the appropriate temperatures are really reached. So I thought it was a great thing. It was really nice. Secondly, the visit to the 55 plus construction site was very good. We have a very professional crew there. And I'm telling you, the one who runs that facility and runs that company is not who you think. It's the, I don't remember her name. I shouldn't have even said it. Lauren, that's right, Lauren. And she's the one that makes things happen. She's also the landlord in the other facility, one of the other facilities they have. And they are designating their daughter to be the landlord at this facility, the overseer. And they're great. It's all family and they have a great brogue. Takes you right back to Ireland. And I used to kid Father Bolin about it. He used to go back to practice up his brogue. He went to Ireland every summer. So we have a lot of things going in the township. And these two people, as the mayor mentioned, this company have taken positions on 2 lots in the Main Street area. And it's their intention to add additional 55 plus facilities and anything else we might want. So if you could think of something, write it down on a piece of paper and we'll submit it for consideration.
Mr. Council President, here, this is a Diet Coke. I am now opening. I just want to make sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Public comment. May I have a motion to open the floor for public comment?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Lettieri. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded. Yeah.
Mrs.
Mrs.
Benedetto.
Benedetto. Thank you, Jesse. I was looking at perhaps an Irish name. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Meeting is open to the public.
Here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Scott Castle from Glenwood. I will say this is my favorite meeting so far with all the talk about beer and everything. So I don't know if that could be an agenda item moving forward. So on the Zoom meetings, I try to attend in person. But to me, I would think we would still want to have as inclusive a number of methods for people to interact as we can, because you know, we do live in a town where I work out of town, a lot of people work out of town, and sometimes it's hard to get here on time. And I think I get a lot out of the calls that come in. You know, a lot of people are coming up with things a lot better than I am, but they have to call in for whatever reason. So I'm hoping that, you know, we don't have to cut that out. And my question is, you know, and I'm no attorney, and maybe it was discussed before, but could we not have the policy or the ordinance that says, you know, we're going to have hybrid meetings to the best of our ability, but if we have internet or other factors that affect that, you know, it may be limited? I mean, is that not something we could do rather than have to cancel the meeting?
I see that as a recipe for disaster, simply because, you know, somebody will say, I missed the sign, I didn't see it. Oh, I didn't realize it was not on this day. I thought it was on another day. My experience, and perhaps Counselor can offer his experience, is either you have it one way or the other.
The issue with public meetings is that in order for what happens here to be legal, to be an effective ordinance or resolution, the meeting has to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. And that means you have to comply with your notice requirements. So sometimes it's a random meeting and there's nothing controversial and nobody, you know, I say nobody cares, but you know what I'm saying? It's just a run of the mill meeting. Well, then maybe there's not an issue because of a Zoom issue. The concern would be hypothetically, that the council goes and they vote on a bonding for road work. And then somebody comes back and says, well, I wanted to oppose that. And I couldn't, you didn't click on me quick enough. I tried raising my hand and you didn't see it and you moved on. Now, if somebody was really so inclined, they could go to court and challenge the actions, whatever actions took, basically void the entire meeting. And sometimes it doesn't matter. It could be, all right, no big deal. We just come back to the next meeting and we redo it. And sometimes that is the answer. Other times it could wind up being a real problem depending on what it is. So that's legally, that's the issue, is that somebody comes back later and there's something that is voided that causes a harm to the town because of a non-compliance issue.
Yeah, and I get that, and I won't belabor the point, but I just thought that, I think the council would know if we're having problems with internet, maybe you postpone then this big vote that you had or whatever, because people couldn't, whatever. I mean, that's just a thought on my end. I really like that people, are more involved now, because I don't think, like, the number of people that I see that are online, I don't think you're gonna have them in attendance. It's just some people live far away. Vernon's a pretty big town. Is the sewer considered still part of the agenda?
It was on the initial.
Okay.
To say yes.
Because I just had a couple of comments on that. I wanted to thank Mr. Sparta and Mr. Higgins. I think you guys had some great points and some questions that looked at it more from the, resident side of things. Because I think it is a potential big burden forcing people to connect. And, this is just my opinion, but Mr. Rizzuto, your comments were to me pretty surprising because they seemed a little, I guess I would say, callous about people that have to do that. Like, if they don't want to do it, they should have to anyway. And we don't know everyone's situation. Luckily, this isn't affecting me right now. I don't live near that area. But these are people that you're saying, they're forced to pay this money. And, we've got the thing where, oh, well, they can say have a hardship case. I'm sure you have to prove some pretty good points to do that. And you don't know what's going on in these people's lives. Maybe they make $150,000 a year, but they've got a ton of bills that they couldn't pay. And now, they're going to look at the hardship and say, well, you make plenty of money, you have to pay this. So, those comments I really didn't think were too great, honestly. And then the other one where you had been saying that,
So please.
what's that?
Wrap it up. 3 minutes.
Oh,
That's what that alarm was.
Oh, okay. Because, the tax piece where, the taxes are, property taxes, people would be happy if they only went up as much as the sewer tax, or as much as the MUA costs. That to me doesn't make any sense. I mean, they're paying the property taxes anyway. It's a totally different thing. These are extra fees that are on there. I think we just have to think about the people we're affecting, when we make statements like that. So thanks. Sorry to use up the.
Moment.
Yeah.
This council works under the basis of laws. The reason why a lot of the things that the agencies do are based upon law. Whether or not we can pass an ordinance, whether or not we can go to bonding, whether or not we can do a lot of things are based on laws. For you to come here and say I was very callous, yes, perhaps it seems that way because if you didn't have that I guess callousness, if you want to continue to call it that, I don't call it that. I consider it, in fact, that the only way that's going to work is by requiring the hookups. Otherwise, why go through the mechanics? It's not going to make any difference between whether or not it's a private company or a municipal utility authority. It's the same thing. There are ways of handling it. It was noticed to the public by the chairman of the MUA. And that's the only way we're going to make this work. And to say that I don't care is really wrong because I've lived in this town for 55 years and I've seen what happens with people who don't take an interest and make a decision and follow the decision as they would in a business. You have a town center that has no water because nobody looked at it well long enough. You have a sewage area that has pipes going down the back into the back of the some of the other buildings and some wetlands or not near the wetlands that, you know, don't have any way of being hooked up to any of the businesses on the other side of Route 94. And these were situations that were put together by qualified engineers. What they were doing, I don't know. All right, and we had a situation with a member of the public who was looking at, you know, being told to hook up to a particular area on the lateral and was told that he'd have to do a major, you know, reconstruction of his wall and so forth. And as it turned out, it just took the engineer and another member of the public, a previous person who had been on the MUA, to go over there and point out, no, this is exactly where we do it. And to say that the people who are sitting on these committees are being cold-hearted about something is not right. But the only way we're going to get this township to grow is by adding users. It's as simple as that. When I left this council 5 years ago or 6 years ago, there was a study that was supposed to have been put into effect by going down to the DEP. When I came back on 2 years ago, that study still hadn't been acted upon. And it's only been with the continued pressure put on the people who are making these decisions by our administration. I know that the mayor has done it and certainly the CFO. So I can understand your concern, especially, you know, being a resident, you know, owner of a residence like myself. I mean, you know, it's not what you want to hear, but this is not new. And I think if I were to talk to the mayor, the attorney here, who's also happens to be a mayor in Bridgewater, that they probably have had situations like this and they have to give some answers that are very, very difficult to throw out. Which is the reason why the MUA was not brought in as a utility in the township, but an authority separate from the township, because that way they didn't have to wait and they didn't have to ask for permission. And quite honestly, the township could protect itself from public pressure, so to speak, because the people didn't like something. Basically, you have to go to the MUA because it's an authority.
I mean, thanks for all of that, but I still feel that, you know, if you have to force people to do something, maybe you should look into what's being done to them, because there's a reason for that. So and I'll stand by, I do think I'm not saying the whole council says this. I said your comment was callous, and I feel that way still. I'm not saying you're always a callous guy. I'm just saying right now that was a callous comment. And
I sit on the MUA and I want it to succeed. It's not going to succeed unless we have users.
so let's force everybody.
No,
Options.
Not forcing, they're getting a value.
They are not getting about, you were just, I'm sorry, I'm taking up time, but we were just saying, if I got septic for $40,000 new put in 3 months ago, and then they run it by me, I should be forced to connect to that. How is that a value for me?
You obviously missed part of the conversation because the MUA.
Be open-ended.
No.
Oh, we'll take it into consideration.
That's right, and we do, and it has been done.
Okay.
This is not something that it only happens once in a while, it happens frequently. But you have to be able to say that the necessity to be hooked up to the lateral must be followed through at some point. And it just can't be open-ended, as you put it. Thank you.
Hey, one last thing, Scott, I did notice that, hardship process. I witnessed it, watched it through. And they do pretty much, they do work with people, so it's something to consider. It's not so pro, they seem to work with people, especially in situations, so.
Anyone else?
Ann Larson,
Ms. Larson?
Thank you. Here we go again. Just a point in reference to this hardship process. These are people that are paying taxes. They shouldn't be reduced to having to beg for a forbearance on hooking up to a system that they clearly don't need. If there's a benefit there, they would be anxious to do it. They're not. If they have a system that's 3 months old, 3 years old, 5 years old, if it's working, it doesn't matter. If it's an operational system and they have an inspection done and it proves it's working, we shouldn't be forcing anyone to do anything. I know of a businessman in town, he had to pay for 4 connection fees on a brand new septic that he already had there. This is an overbearing, heavy-handed approach in the efforts to save the MUA. I'm telling you, the way to do it is to sell it. We don't need to make a profit. We just need to get out intact and pay for it once instead of forcing people with a $40,000 system to hopefully, satisfy some need for EDUs. This is insane. Okay, it's not the town's job to make money on EDUs. You were looking at this the wrong way. I'm very sorry to keep disagreeing, but this is very heavy-handed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
yes, Jessica Palladini,
Mrs. Palladini?
Yes, hello again. I know that many of you, if not most of you, don't really care about public opinion, but I'm going to give my public opinion. Let's see. If you go into this new system, are you going to allow email to be read at the meetings? If a citizen sends you an email and says, I'd like this to be read at the meeting, are you going to allow that?
Yeah, why not?
No.
Okay.
Why not?
No, because we don't know.
Well, this wasn't
No.
intended for you to have discussion among yourselves again. I just want to be able to say what I have to say. You did open it to the public.
Right?
Okay. This attorney, I'm sorry, what is his name?
Mr. Mensch? Matt Mensch?
Okay, Mr. Mensch, I wasn't sure if you are our actual attorney or the substitute. You're starting to sound a little bit like Mr. Zelinski, and that really concerns me. And I'm going to tell you why. Couple of things. Why can't you just simply advertise that if there are technical issues with a meeting not being streamed, the meeting will continue anyway? Why can't you just advertise that? I don't see all of this hoopla about the meeting having to stop or any of that. The meeting shouldn't stop. Why can't you just post the disclaimer that should there be technical difficulties, it will not end the particular meeting? This talk about dubbing voices and saying slanderous things, I guess that's happened multiple times in the past that you're so concerned about it happening now. Did you forget that you have a mute button? As far as 100 different people being pictured, that's not the case. And I believe it was Councilman Sparta who was correct when he said that you have like a 12-member panel and there are multiple pages and you could flip through those pages, but there aren't 100 people pictured at the same time. So I'm disappointed that the attorney says that he likes the non-interactive mode. You all talk about transparency while you're campaigning for an election, but then it seems that once you get on, you do anything but. And once again, you do have a mute button, and I'm wondering how many problems you've had in the past with allowing a member of the public to speak that you now feel you have to limit and restrict transparency and eliminate the public saying, I don't have a problem with you saying, should there be technical difficulties, the meeting will continue anyway. And
Thank you,
I
Jesse. Will you please wrap it up? It's 3 minutes,
Yes,
please.
yes, I sure will, sorry. And I think you ought to look into what the attorney said about legal issues and all that. I don't see that being a problem if you just post that disclaimer. That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Is there anyone else?
I don't have any other hands up.
Anyone else wishing to address the public or council? May I have a motion to close the? Moved. Seconded moved by Mr. Higgins, seconded by Mr. Sparta. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Any council members received a copy of the bills list. Have any questions or comments? I have one. I just noticed it. We have a check for our current labor attorney. And we also have a check for our previous labor attorney. Is there a reason why we are using the past attorney as well?
Mind telling me the check number so I can.
For the sake of finding it here. Yeah. 61725. This is the previous attorney.
That's our prior labor attorney.
Right?
Those were for legal services that were still done in January. I know that there were some things that he was working on. I can get you the detailed invoice.
Oh, it's not necessary. So this is not
It's not ongoing
an ongoing.
unless there was something that he was continually working on. I don't know if it's the last invoice with that.
I'm sorry?
I don't know if that was the last invoice
Oh, okay.
we will see, but
All right, thank you. No? I'm good. Okay. Moving along. May I have a motion to place the minutes for the meeting of April 22nd, 2024, executive session minutes on the floor?
I'm sorry, they're only the regular session.
Regular,
Sorry.
no executive, just regular.
Oh. I'm sorry,
Where's me?
cross that out. I have the regular session minutes. Okay, place them on the floor. Moved by Mr. Sparta. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Di Benedetto. Any comments, deletions, additions on that? Hearing none, I'll call for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Bushieri,
Abstain.
Councilmember Di Benedetto,
Yes.
Councilmember Higgins,
Yes.
Councilmember Sparta.
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Moving to our consent agenda. Do you have any questions or would like to have a particular resolution separated from the group? Please advise me and I'll do so. Resolution 24-141, calling for the modernization of Open Public Records Act, OPRA, and the swift passage of S 2930/A-4045. Resolution 24-142, a resolution approving participation with the state of New Jersey federal grant program administered by the New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety, Office of the Attorney General. Resolution 24-143, a resolution authorizing the execution of a shared service agreement between Township of Vernon and the Vernon Township School District. Resolution 24-144, approving a charitable solicitor's permit, Vernon Township Fire Department. Resolution 24-145, a resolution of the Township of Vernon requesting that First Energy rapidly increase internal funding for JCP&L to quickly rectify long delayed yet necessary modernization upgrades to its electrical distribution grid. Resolution 24-146, resolution approving a charitable solicitor's permit, Pochuck Valley Fire Department Incorporation. Resolution 24-147, authorize the award of a professional services contract with McAlligizic, the CLM of Princeton Hydro LLC for Lake Watershed Management Plan Phase 2 in a required disclosure manner. May I have these items approved for consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Bucieri. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mrs. Di Benedetto. Any questions or comments, or forever hold your peace?
Yeah, on the Oprah organization.
Yeah.
From what I've been reading, it'll limit the public from requesting Oprah request in some format or some form. I realize that Oprah requests are overdone and many cases abused. But from what I'm reading, it would limit the information that the public should have, and it's public information whenever these requests are made. And it's a big subject. It's a big problem right now. And personally, I'm against modernizing it to limit the information flow that the public is allowed to get. If that's the result of the modernization, then I'm not in favor of it.
You want to pull that one out, Bill, then? Is it too late?
Both of you vote no.
I would.
Okay, I'll be
Yeah,
pulled.
pull it out. Sorry.
Anyone else? Okay,
Do we need to have another motion to,
no, I'll just categorize it. May I have a motion to amend the previous resolution for resolution 24-142 through resolution 24-147. May I have a
I'll make that motion.
motion made by Mr. Sparta? Again, is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Mr. Higgins. All in favor? I'm sorry, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bucieri,
yes.
Councilmember Di Benedetto,
Yes.
Councilmember Higgins.
Yes.
Councilmember Sparta,
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. May I have a motion to place resolution 24-141 on the floor for consideration?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Sparta, is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Higgins. I will point this out, Mr. Higgins. I believe that a second may place you in a position of requiring yourself to vote. So is there someone else who would like to second this?
He can still vote no.
You can still vote no?
Ken?
Yeah.
You're just moving it for discussion,
Right, yeah,
right?
so,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, all right.
Everyone can still vote however they like
All right.
on the merits of it.
Any other comments?
I do have a question. So I read a little bit about it, Bill, so maybe you can help me understand a little, because I was on the fence regarding this bill. And from what I thought it was more limiting, but not really restricting access.
Right.
Okay,
It's not.
I don't know exactly
okay,
the definition of what's coming about from all the things I've read. The intent is to stop people from flooding request.
Which I understand.
Using up time, energy, money, and they've overdone it. But on the other hand, it also, from what I've seen, does restrict and limit the information the public is supposed to get at the same time.
Does it restrict the information or the timing? I thought it restricted like,
Yes.
yeah, like it gives you more
Yes.
time
You-
and it could
The
require.
information is public. It has to be given.
Excuse me.
It's just,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The issue that also has to be considered is that many of our records are required to be released to the public when requested. For example, dog license. They used to have, maybe they still do, some type of identification with them. And we have people coming in and asking for the lists and names for all dog licenses listed within a particular period of time.
Right.
All right, so people were using this to further a business
Yeah, is it like a
requirement.
mailing list?
I'm sorry?
Like a mailing list?
Make like mailing list.
Yeah.
We're also coming in and looking for names and address of marriage, vital statistics. Again, looking for use on a mailing list. There are a number of situations like this. There are also, and I agree, there are also situations where people are asking for the addresses or I'm sorry, not addresses, but the information contained in a previous application for other for cars or for some type of situation. Either the township has to monitor for its fleet cars or for its police vehicles or something like that. And again, this is something that they're doing so that they can update a mailing list. Not to mention the people who are coming in and simply asking for, I want a copy of all correspondence between the mayor and this particular person and or the mayor and this particular council person. And, and they make a lot of time demands on the clerk or the clerk's designee who has to fill these things out, to the point where I remember looking at them and it was going into the multi-hundreds. I mean, you were looking at a lot of time.
It's abused, there's no doubt about it.
It can be. So I think my feeling in talking I was at a new council members class in Morristown, and I was talking with the mayor of Morristown, and he was one of the advocates, because this is supported by the New Jersey League of Municipalities. And he was telling me that the situation was getting deplorable. It was just, it almost required them to hire another employee simply to satisfy these types of situations. So I see both sides. I would hope that cooler heads would prevail when they put the ordinance together or the law together on this, the statute.
Yeah, the state is the one going to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this really is not a vote to.
No, this is
No,
a
it's-
motion of support.
right.
from
Just a,
To put it through.
Yeah.
This is a motion of support from another township.
right, it's not our law.
Just so you're aware, a version of this bill did pass both houses today.
Oh,
So the governor has not signed it yet, and the governor has the power to conditionally veto bills.
Mhm.
So we don't know whether the governor's office will have its own markups of the bill, but it did pass both the Assembly and the Senate today. I am not conversant enough to be able to give anybody a rundown of every change, but there was significant changes that were introduced, amendments introduced last Thursday in the committees. Generally, I don't want to say to weaken the bill. The initial version of the bill, I think, was more restrictive. The changes were more drastic to Oprah, And I think over the course of the process by which people raised the thought that maybe the bill was going too far in limiting Oprah, I think the new amendments of the bill have backed off of certain aspects of it. So certain records that may have been previously excluded are now back to being re-included. But there's back and forth, you know, they have a standardized form now, I think. They have different changes to somebody requested record and they're successful. Right now, under the law, you have to get attorney's fees. Going forward, you can get attorney's fees, but the court can decide whether or not a town, like, if you just missed something, if it wasn't intentional, right now, it's almost like a strict liability. You just, you know, miss it by
Attorneys that make
a
a living on that.
yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. So, but I just want to let everybody know, at the end of the day, there's a lot in the bill and there's a lot even in the amendments. But it did pass both houses and it's now on to the governor to either sign, veto, or conditionally veto.
If you look on the emails that our clerk sends us, they frequently include updates on legislative actions. And you probably see that involved there. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Bucieri,
Yes.
Councilmember Di Benedetto,
Yes.
Councilmember Higgins,
No,
Councilmember Sparta,
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Resolution 24-148. Self-examination of the 2024 budget resolution as required by Department of Community Affairs. May I have a motion to put this on the floor for consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Peters. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Di Benedetto. Discussion, this is basically a requirement. We are chosen this year as a township that can do a self-evaluate. So, may I have a roll call, please?
Bucieri,
Yes.
Councilmember Di Benedetto,
Yes.
Councilmember Higgins.
yes,
Councilmembers,
Yes.
Council President,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Moving along, we have the public hearing for the 2024 budget. If you like, we can proceed over here. CFO can have it laid on the screen behind.
Can you, please, yes, and then do you mind making me a panelist so I can share with the public, please?
Please take a pen and pencil with you in case you want to have any questions on this.
Should be all ready, Donnie.
Nobody can tell you that.
You said.
All right.
Sorry. Why are we not working? Oh, come on.
It was just,
Literally just up.
I could see it on here. Oh, you're good.
But it's like when I hit show, it's not letting me do it, which is weird. Okay.
Sometimes when you put it in a slideshow for some reason, it. Screws it up. Okay.
Well, this is how we're going to do this, so. Just do it like this then, it's fine. Oh, so Vernon Township's 2024 municipal budget, everyone can hear me, right?
Can you get a microphone?
Sure, I'll get one of these.
I'd have to turn it on the bottom top.
Pick the one that like,
There you go. That has no button.
is that good? Yes.
Yes.
Vernon Township's 2024 municipal budget accounts for an operations budget that addresses services and obligations for a four-season municipality of over 68 square miles. Our township is claimed as home by over 20,000 people and visited by tens of thousands each year for the beauty of the Appalachian Trail and active recreational activities offered year-round by the township, Mountain Creek, Great Gorge, and other local businesses in town. These are a summary of our 2024 current fund budget numbers. So some to just focus on, there's over $17.7 million in municipal operations appropriations, almost $5 million in debt service and capital appropriations, $2.7 million in reserve for uncollected taxes. I will review later kind of the definition of that. Nearly $2.8 million in SCUMA billing, budget revenues of $10.7 million. That does not include $1.6 million in delinquent taxes that we're anticipating. And this year's amount to be raised by taxation is $18,882,454.47. The total budget is $31,400,500 even. There was a decrease in capital and debt expenses of 3.4% over last year, which does reflect a reduction in cash capital and an increased use of debt obligations. It is important to maintain the township's capital and debt plan, paying for certain items in cash that have useful lives over 10 years. Projects proposed have been reviewed and portions of the shorter term items have larger cash down payments to reduce their impact on the township's bond ordinance useful life. Longer term items like fire apparatus and large DPW equipment are put into debt obligations. And just to let the council and the public know, this past year, the state did approve a change to fire apparatus that increased the useful life to 20 years rather than 10 years to fit more in line with real world experience. Decreases in revenues anticipated, which we can see right here, this year it's 10.7 million, are really due to a decrease in the grant line, which is expected since we had the community project funding last year as well as other grants. Those grants, there are some grants that come in throughout the year. We will do amendments to the budget throughout the year when we receive those. A good example of that is the Clean Communities grant that we get every year in the summer. There was a large increase in the municipal property tax relief fund from the state last year, which we do anticipate this year. We're also anticipating a decrease in the use of fund balance, but we are using a one-time revenue source for the reserve of property proceeds, which is funding that we did receive in 2022 for our property sale. This funding, again, is a non-recurring revenue, as is the fund balance. With the introduction of this year's budget, the township will see a decrease of their fund balance to 15% of this year's total budget at $4,923,177.37. Through the use of revolving fund balance, as well as this revenue line and cuts in appropriations, the township is able to keep taxes from increasing for a third year in a row. This is just a nice pie chart that we have for the municipal budget. The operations for our municipal budget this year account for 55% of the total municipal budget. That's not the total tax rate in your total tax bill, but this is just the municipal portion. Debt, capital, and deferred charges account for the next highest at 15%, followed by the reserve for uncollected taxes at 8.75%. And our statutory obligations like Social Security and pension payments account for 9.25% of our budget. The SCUMA bill does account for 9% of the budgeted costs. There is an offsetting revenue source for that, though. And this is then finished up by utilities at 2%, grants and shared services, which also have offsetting revenues at around 1%. If any of the council members have any questions during this too, I know I'm going through a lot of appropriations numbers, revenue numbers. If anyone has a question, you can feel free to stop me and I'll answer in real time. So the local municipal tax rate. Compared to last year, the assessed value is just over $3 billion. We're currently at just under $3.4 billion. The 2023 average assessed home was $262,600. This year, it's $289,700. The 2023 municipal tax rate was 0.612. This year it is decreased to 0.555. Majority of that is obviously because of the increase in assessed value. There's a 0% annual increase on the average home, as mentioned before, and the average municipal taxes are $1,609, which if you compare it to an average family of four cell phone bill, which is just over $2,600, you're paying about $1,000 less than that average bill per year. So just to review 2023's budget items versus 2024, we used $2,065,000 last year from the fund balance. This year, the governing body is choosing to use another $1,750,000 of fund balance, plus an additional $612,000 of property sale revenue reserves to offset an increase in property taxes. Having fund balance is important for unforeseen circumstances that arise like we did when COVID hit in 2020, and to help offset large expenditures we do not anticipate. For example, large repairs in current operations for fire trucks, ambulances, et cetera. Some repairs going to be upwards of $100,000, which we do not currently have in the budget. With tight appropriations lines and lack of adequate fund balance, the township could be on the hook for issues should they arise this year. We are still on track with paying down larger than minimum payments on our short-term debt obligations. Most of our debt ordinances have useful lives of around 10 years, which means the township needs to remain vigilant in paying down ordinances that are obsolete once they go to permanent financing. The governing body has also reduced the amounts in cash for our capital projects, reducing from $1.8 million in cash capital items last year to $1.5 million this year. Cash capital expenditures and reserves reduce overall debt in the future while still addressing current and future capital needs. Some of the 2024 budget highlights. Cash capital items decreased by $209,550 from last year's budget. There's an increase in debt service of $131,160. That's really in part to the average note interest that we're seeing from year to year. Obviously, this is not 2020 or 2021 when note interest was like 0.5%. So it is significant this year. We have continued our shared services for animal control and are actively researching additional shared services for the future. We are staying in line with our capital plans for 2024 and moving forward on items that need to be addressed. We're also still focused on better long-term planning by putting money aside for future capital needs through the replenishment of capital reserves and the continuation of our fleet program. That has paid off in the past years, as well as this year for use of our existing reserves to help pay for some large ticket items. A good example this year is the township will most hopefully be purchasing or approving the purchase of a new street sweeper to meet all of our requirements for the MS4 permitting. In order to do that, we were able to use $285,000 of our reserves for DPW to offset that cost.
I don't know if public is aware, or maybe some of the council, but again, I was at a meeting with the state senators and the assemblyman, Assemblyman Fantasia and
Ganamore.
and it's Mike Ganamore, yes, and also Mayor Space. I'm sorry, Senator Space. I didn't want to demote him. But he pointed out that this particular act, which was brought forward by the state, carries a number of different requirements, including the registration. Am I right? Literally registration of the actual catch basins.
Yes.
And the registration of those, the fact that we have to have our own personnel going around monitoring and noting the condition of each one of those catch basins. I would say also that if any of them had to be replaced, it'll be replaced with only catch basins made by a specific manufacturer, so that you're going to be paying made in the states requirements. And I know that when when I was on the council earlier and also on the Board of Education, we were getting them from India because India does a lot with steel. And also that this requirement requires us to clean the streets three times a year. And for this whole change, because we were elevated to a tier A, I believe.
Yes.
We received a grand total of $75,000. And it's gonna cost us substantially more than $75,000 because of the time involved, the number of people. And again, when I was at this meeting, it required some of the people, the townships there, go out and hire new personnel in order to fulfill the requirements on this particular program.
Moving on to services. So these are just a list of the departments, and some of the things that they are responsible for. In order to run everyday operations of the municipality and maintain the required offices, there are various departments within the town. The offices process building and zoning permits, food handler licenses, marriage licenses, birth and death certificates, Oprah requests, court transactions, and animal licensing. They also collect taxes, assess values to properties in town, process tax appeals, process farmland assessments, run the zoning and planning board, land use board, process invoices, make deposits, and handle payroll. Public safety encompasses our 24/7 service from the police, fire, and EMS services, the Office of Emergency Management. It includes contributions to our 4 volunteer fire departments and our volunteer ambulance service as well. The DPW is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of our roadways. There's 300 township roads and over 108 miles of roadway. They handle plowing over 108 miles of roadway during each storm. They handle drainage projects and maintenance, brush control, recycling center, maintenance of all buildings, grounds, and parks. Recreation is responsible for all recreation programs in the township in conjunction with the PAL. They handle the farmers market as well as the community garden and extensive programming within the township. Insurance is another service that is offered by the township. It includes unemployment, health insurance costs after employee contributions, workers' compensation, liability insurance, life, accidental, and death coverage, etc. There are items that are entirely out of our control of our municipal budget, but they still have an effect on our budget directly and indirectly. Directly, we're affected by FICA, which is Social Security and Medicare, and pension payments. The state increased PERS, that's the Public Employees Retirement System payments, by 12% this year and over 6% for PFRS, that's Police and Fire Retirement System, by over 6% this year. Debt service is derived from our existing schedules and the urge to pay down some of our bad debt. Lastly, the county and school tax levies, which account for 78% of a homeowner's total tax bill, are handled and billed in your total tax bill. However, they still affect our bottom line as the township is required to send the full billed amounts regardless of our collections. That's why we have something called a reserve for uncollected taxes. This is an amount that we calculate based on last year's collections, which was 96.67% in 2023.
Can we go back to that last?
Sure.
In the past, we've had a number of situations where there were tax appeals and the township lost those tax appeals. And we were forced to refund the taxes to the company, individuals or whatever. So what you're saying is the Board of Education does not give us back the amount of money that we gave them when we gave them that portion for their requirements.
Correct. So 50%, if it was based on this year's, it'd be 50%, 7% of the refund would be theirs, but we're paying that back.
We're paying. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. In total, the average Vernon taxpayer is paying $4.40 per day for the municipal budget. Included in these costs are long-term issues such as debt management and a capital plan that continues to reduce our reliance on debt for the future. It includes plans that continue to reduce future debt burdens by permanently financing debt that has a useful life above 10 years, foreclosing on any old tax title liens on vacant lots so that those properties can be sold and possibly put back on the tax rolls, growing our fund balance for future emergent situations and increasing efficiency while still providing top-notch services to our residents. We're looking towards the future, moving Vernon forward and appropriating funds accordingly. That's all I have.
Okay, one other question.
Hmm?
If one were to ask you in your operations structure, how much money in that structure, that little piece of the pie or big piece of the pie,
Mhm.
if someone were to come in and say, we're gonna have to reduce the amount of taxation by reducing that area, what area would be affected? That's not due to contractual obligation,
What dollar amount or what?
percentage or dollars,
So a dollar amount would probably be around just under 5 million.
okay?
Because obviously we have contractual obligations with unions, we have contractual obligations with actual vendors that are in our O&E lines for the budget. Things like statutory obligations, insurance, like those are dictated to us. There's only so much we can do to control insurance costs, which the township has done in the past, just moving from state. Well, we had our own plan in 2018. We moved to state health benefits when it was economically beneficial. And then we moved away from the state when they increased our amount last year by 21%. So, the township is doing what they can for insurance, but you can only do so much. There's certain things that we are obligated to pay. So I mean, debt, capital, deferred charges, those are all pretty much set amounts. The reserve for uncollected taxes, that's a calculated amount. So I'd probably say about under 5 million.
Under 5 million.
Mhm.
Which represents what, about one and a half tax points?
No, but you would say a percentage of that.
Okay.
So, right, so the things that are not contractually obligated is about it's like 4.7 million, not contractually obligated. And then from there, you would say a percentage. So you can't cut that whole amount out, obviously. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, earlier today, I sent you an email, and I guess this is your response to it,
Mhm.
which was, so the email I sent was just a breakdown. I requested a breakdown of capital projects.
Yep.
And so on the budget, it was listed as saying, park projects or parks.
Improvement.
And so I simply asked, what's going to take place this year? What's going to take place in the next year or two, whatever is listed? And, could you just give a quick update as to what is going to happen on some of those capital projects?
Sure. Just let me grab. So I did circulate to council. This is more of a working document that we have in-house just for my calculations and to send off to bond council to do a bond ordinance, or I draft a capital ordinance for anything that's cash items. So some of the things we have planned, the road improvement program, obviously that includes main roads, secondary roads, that's about $1.3 million. That includes a cash portion. Everything that's put into a bond ordinance, for clarification, we're required to have at least a 5% down payment on those items. Some of these items I choose to put more than 5%. And the reason why we do that is to decrease the useful life of the ordinance. So something like roads has a 10-year useful life, but something like the lighting improvements at Veterans Memorial Park could have a 20-year useful life. So you want the higher amount, because if you're going to permanently finance in the future, you're financing something that's still useful within its useful life. So that's some of our items there. The road improvement program. We have trucks, plows, sanders, the street sweeper I mentioned before. There's some items for the police, animal control, EMS. We have a new ambulance, the stretcher that goes with that ambulance, Lucas devices, fire department. We have another mini pumper that's to keep them on schedule for replacement of their apparatus. Their cascade system replacement, that's for filling their bottles so that they're fully filled. SCBA packs equipment, their turnout gear for 4 departments to keep them on track again, so that we're never in a situation where we have to replace all of them at the same time. For parks, we have lightings at Veterans Memorial Park, some fencing items, some fencing replacement at the parks, and archival of the construction documents. Some of these items, like I said, are paid for in cash. That would be done through a capital ordinance. The majority of them are paid through a bond, which will be done through a bond ordinance. Those bond ordinances are detailed. They give you an average useful life for the entire ordinance, and that has to be obviously approved by council. So these are some of the projects that the mayor has worked through and determined, is how we're going to move forward.
Good. I like the way you're explaining things. It's clear English. It's, like having a conversation. And I think a lot of people, including me, are benefiting from it.
Oh, I wanted to just touch base too on the capital budget so that people understand. Capital budget is more of what we're anticipating, right? It's just a plan. So if our bond ordinance does not necessarily meet that, the bond ordinance is written so that it amends the capital budget automatically. It's the same thing with a capital ordinance. If something changes or maybe a price changes and the price is less, it doesn't mean like, well, you have to spend $300,000 because that's what was in the capital budget. It gets amended through that process.
What percentage of our budget is personnel? Personnel, salaries, benefits, and all the rest?
I would have to do that calculation. I do not know that offhand.
Could you guess?
I would not feel comfortable guessing on that number.
Okay. Because from everything you've been speaking about, it's totally different than the Board of Ed budget. Because I have the experience and it's a whole different setup here. And you're talking about equipment, parks, clothes. These are not people, things, and a good percentage of the budget is spent on those things rather
Are you
than.
talking about the yearly cost for all the salaries? The yearly cost for all the salaries? Is that what you're asking?
Well, what percentage of the budget, that's all.
Yeah,
No.
because he said salaries and benefits and all that. I would have to do that
Oh,
calculation.
Personnel costs. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to do that calculation.
Pension payments, all that.
Right. Any other question? Go back.
Okay.
Okay.
That it? Thank you. Oh, okay.
Electric.
The budget
No.
back there.
If it's the projector or the screen, because honestly, you get a better.
Yeah, you do. I think also too, the angle is such a published. We need that sitting straight. We can mount it up there. I'll actually
Before he. And it's just a lot of
Team with the. Unless there's gonna be a split.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
So. Two different.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So. Together.
Council President,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion to amend the budget.
You
certainly.
want to wait for Bill?
Wait for
Oh,
Bill.
where'd Bill? I didn't realize Bill was
I think
there.
it's bathroom.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't realize Bill wasn't there. I can't.
I know.
You're like looking, well, no, not that you're that tall or anything, Jessica. It's just, you don't, you're looking through like
Yeah.
three people. There he is.
You, I think we could do. First, just open meeting to the public. So, budget.
Oh, he didn't do that yet.
Can,
Yeah, do that first. Okay, do the public hearing first, sorry.
yes. I was going to suggest that as well as as opening, making a motion, the adoption of it, and then can,
Oh,
We
no, Matt
can-
said
we
to do
can-
the,
Yeah.
Matt said to do the amendment first.
the amendment. from that.
We have to open to the public.
Yeah, so I think,
The public hearing on the.
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, so first we just do that and then we can deal with any.
All right,
Thing after, right.
so I'll make a motion to open the floor.
Okay. Floor is open to the, I'm sorry, motion has been made. To open the floor on the adoption of the 2024 municipal budget.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Sparta. So it was motion by Mrs. Bucieri. May I have all in favor signify by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Aye. Certainly, your floor is open to the public.
Good evening, Council President, council members, Steve Dunlop. My first point would be to the capital projects. $4.5 million listed there. There's no addendum to show what they are. Now, did tonight give a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of what they were? Last year it was mentioned in a meeting, and I know it's been since denied that money goes into one big bucket and it's just put where it's needed. It was said. I think there should be, I think that the council members should demand that there be a breakdown of what $200,000 for park improvements, $290,000 for municipal improvements. What are these improvements? And how do you judge if they're following what they proposed, if it's just a raw number? I really think the council needs to demand that there be an addendum to break out what these numbers are. There's guess I should have shown up here a little better prepared, but $1.325 million for road improvements, $1.248 million for public works, $200,000 for park improvements, $290,000 for improvements to township property, with no real attachment to show what these improvements are. So I would hope that the council would demand that they get some kind of a breakdown of what these monies are anticipated to be spent on. So you have something to track to see if that is what it was spent on. That's the one point. My second point has to do with the compensation line. I don't know if council members are asking for an increase in their stipend, or if not, but it's in there. There's also an increase in the stipend for the mayor. I know there was talk in the past recently about salary. I don't think the mayor's compensation to be referred to as salary. It's a stipend. He's not an employee, he's an elected official, just like the council members are elected officials. There was a ruling passed in the federal government just in the last 90 days that people that make less than $48,000 are entitled to overtime. I would hate to see our mayor show up here in 6 months with a spreadsheet saying, you guys owe me a bunch of overtime. So I really think we need to get away from the terminology of salary and need to be talking about stipend when it comes to the mayor, when it comes to the council. And my last point is on the what is now being billed as a grant to the Board of Ed. Last year, our former mayor tried to get the council to give $30,000 to the school. There was pushback. It didn't happen. New mayor comes in. He doubles up on it, wants
You got like 5 seconds,
to
sorry.
give him $50,000. He's incensed now. Last night put out a statement saying that it would be a grant to study if the buses are needed. Seems like a lot of money to be studying that. I think it's the Board of Ed's responsibility, not the township's responsibility. And this was discussed last year, multitude of times at the Board of Ed. That
Thank you.
a lot of people using the buses, and that even the The athletic director said that he has more people turning out for sports now than he ever did.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dunlap.
So I hope that you guys will take a hard look at this because
Thank
I
you.
just don't think we should be giving money to the Board of Ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? We have anybody else online?
Yes, I have Jesse Palladini.
Mrs. Palladini?
Hi, I don't really have anything to say about the budget, but I think you should have made your amendments before you open the meeting to the public for a public hearing, because then how do we don't get an opportunity to voice our opinions on any amendments?
Yes, you will.
We will, okay, great.
If there's
Thanks.
a change to it, there'll be an opportunity because we have to re-advertise and then you will have another public hearing on it.
Okay, I just want to say one last thing. I know that some people are not going to like what I have to say, but even though I'm a huge proponent for bringing back the after-school activity buses, I don't think it's something that should come from the municipal budget. And the other thing is that the Board of Ed has a question on the ballot, and that question includes $50,000 for after-school activity buses. So are we being taxed twice for that? That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. For anyone else?
Yes, I have John Skull.
John Skull. John?
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to just state my name is John Skoll. I'm a
Hey, Skoll.
67-year-old vet. And I just want to be brief. I'd just like to say that from top to bottom, the council, everything that's being thrown at you, you guys are doing a hell of a job. A hell of a job. But timing is everything, and if I had to say one thing, my dad always said timing is everything. And, to have the council meeting on a night like tonight with the Rangers winning with one more period to go, I'm trying to.
Are they winning? That's
Trying to
great.
go back and forth, and I'm just trying to soak it all in. But I just like to say that you guys are doing a hell of a job. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Peg DeStassi.
Mrs. DeStassi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I would like to say that I agree with Steve on everything. I think he hit the nail on the head for all of those items, and I think the council needs to address them all. The only other thing I would like to add is that having the open meeting for the budget announcement and the vote on the budget on the same night is a ridiculous decision, whoever made it. They should be 2 weeks apart so people who haven't had a chance to listen to the meeting could at least view it and then present their opinions. But to do that on the same night is very unfair to all the residents. That's it. Thank you. Have a good night.
Right.
Anyone else?
I don't have any other hands up.
Anyone else from the audience? No? I'll ask for a motion to close the board of the public. Moved by Mr. Sparta. Is there a Seconded by Mrs. Di Benedetto. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay.
Um,
All right. So now I would like to make a motion to make an amendment to the 2024 municipal budget.
certainly.
Okay, I would like to,
Second on that, or
oh, we need a second, yeah.
I'll second that.
But you can tell people what your
What I
amendment
want,
is.
yeah, do you want me to say what my amendment is
Oh,
first
okay.
before
Yeah.
you second it, Brett? Okay.
Okay.
So it would be line on section 6, line Y01201110-01, mayor and council regular salaries.
Hold on, want to give that,
I have
It's
it
on,
right
under
here.
section 6,
Mhm.
501-20.
110-01. Mayor and council regular salaries.
And that's
I The proposed amount is 67,500. I would like to amend that to have it be the same as the 2023 budget, which is 45,000. I have another amendment.
Hold on. Just writing this down.
One at a time, Matt? No.
No, they can offer it as a whole, and then,
As a whole.
and then if there's only support for, you know, one or
could break it?
however many there are, they can break it up.
Okay. Okay. The second
Zero. Okay.
amendment is under section 20.
Right.
And there's no, the line for the group of grants is Y 0141-706-20. Transportation aid grant.
No, I'm sorry.
That's not it?
No, you have to use, the budget sheet.
I'm using this budget.
Can't use that.
Oh, okay.
Here, it's this one.
I'm using the wrong one. Sorry. This is the one I've been looking at.
No, that's just the worksheet. This
Oh,
is
okay.
the introduced budget right here.
Oh, okay. I didn't bring that one with me. Sorry. So what line is that one on, Janelle, or page?
Sheet 28.
Sheet 28. Okay, thanks. So sheet 28. And that is N, transfer to Board of Education for use of local schools.
Right.
FCOA 29-405, 50,000. I would amend that is just completely stricken.
Okay, can you give me the numbers slowly, please?
Sure, 29-405,
Okay,
$50,000
right.
to be completely removed from the budget. I do have a couple comments about the two line items. We have talked about changes to the stipend, but we have not agreed on as a council to those changes. It would have to be done by ordinance. If that ordinance does occur, we could always revisit that in a future budget for 2025, but at this time, we have not enacted an ordinance. We're already in May. I don't see an ordinance coming anytime soon.
No.
You know, we talked about Ms. Di Benedetto and Mr. Higgins doing it like an exploratory committee. You know, once we have those findings, we can definitely, I wouldn't say it's completely off the table. I think just this line item in this budget is really presumptive, you know, it's putting the cart before the horse. So we're not at that point yet. Regarding the,
Matt, should we have a second, have a discussion on this?
oh, I'm just explaining my reasoning. Is that a
Yeah, I
discussion?
think that it doesn't really, at this point in time, I mean, there's, you know, motion, you can have a second on it and discuss it. If there's, I mean, if there's no second, I guess the easiest way to do it is just to have, see if there's a second.
Okay,
Let's do it that way.
I'll second Natalie's.
okay, thanks, Brad.
All right.
My second line item that I would like completely removed. I have a lot of experience with activity buses, from the board side as a parent of 3 students that have gone through the school district and taken those high school buses. I was on the board when we actually did a survey of kids taking the bus.
Bless you.
Bless you.
I believe Mr. Sparta was on that too, and there was not a lot of use for the bus at that time. I believe if it was a priority, the school board would put it in their budget. I don't believe that the council should be stepping over the line and insinuating itself into the school board's budget. I don't think the school board should do that to our budget. We need to respect our elected officials as the ones that have been tasked with the responsibility of the education, the safety of the students that they've been entrusted with. And I think providing the funds for that bus is crossing over the line, and I don't support it.
Thank you. So may I have a motion to place this on the floor?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Sparta. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Higgins. Any other comments against it, regarding, discussion on this?
Yeah, I have a couple. Like Natalie, we were both on the Board of Ed at the same time, so we actually eliminated it was the 3:30 or 4 o'clock bus. And at that time, we were actually considering eliminating the 5:30 bus at that time too, but we figured we're eliminating one, let's see what happens with the ridership. We actually contacted the contractors to see if we could actually go down to vans and we could do that, but it was gonna cost the same amount of money because we're at that point for the late buses, you're paying for the driver and the fuel, and that's it. So, you know, back in 2012 and 13, we actually passed a pay to play for after school activities, where if you were participating in that, you would pay a fee. If you were on the free and reduced lunch list, that fee would be
Zero.
waived or amended. If they went to a pay to play, they could raise just about enough money to carry the buses if they really wanted to. And lastly, but certainly not least, the board has to approve their budget based on a cap. And I think if we were to give them some money, we are possibly circumventing or usurping that cap. And they have to stay within that cap. So we were to give them money and it's still tax money, whether it comes from us or it goes directly to the Board of Education. And I think we have to be cognizant of that. And I think that would be towing a line that I am not willing to tow. Where they could be circumventing the cap. It may not be circumventing it this year, but next year might be a different story, and the year after that might be a different story. So I support both of Natalie's concerns, and we'll be voting in the affirmative for both of them.
Mr. Council President, can I just, from a legal process standpoint, just want to make sure everyone's on the same page, real quick. So first of all, just really a ticky-tack item, but I believe the initial motion was made by Mr. Jerry, excuse me, and I think Mr. Sparta seconded. We didn't need to have a second,
Okay.
motion. So I think that's the original motion. That's what should be there. From a process standpoint, if you amend, you ultimately vote to introduce a budget amendment, it would have to be advertised. So it's almost like a budget process. It's a two-step process. So you'd vote to for an amendment. That amendment would have to be processed by your CFO in terms of, all the right numbers and legalese, or legalese, all the CFO language. It has to be published. And then at your next meeting, there would be a public hearing, just like you did tonight, a public hearing on the amendment. You would then vote on the amendment. And then depending on the result of that vote, you would then vote on either the budget as amended, or if the amendment was rejected, then you would vote on the original budget. Okay, so it's a two-step process. Just a few very quick things. You would have to, I think, just to clarify, so I understand it, when you reduce the salaries, you are removing that money from the budget overall, correct?
The reducing, just,
As opposed to moving it to a different line item. I
yes,
think
removing
that's-
it completely, yes, and just going back to the 45,000, so
Okay,
removing that.
as opposed to shifting it to a different line item. or something.
No, not shifting it, yeah, just
The,
removing it.
so that needs to be clear in your motion, needs to be clear to
Gotcha.
CFO.
Okay,
The other items, and I do think you want to make sure that your CFO comments on it, just to make sure that you have all the information from the CFO on the amendments. The other thing just so everyone understands, the reason you have to amend it or to republish it is because it's a certain percentage of line items.
Yep.
So you could do certain things without having to republish it. This one, because you're either eliminating one line item or you're reducing it by more than 10% of the other, you'd have to republish those.
gotcha.
Just again, to make sure, I think everyone does understand this, but just to make sure everyone understands it, that the money that's in the budget now, under any line item, including, some of the public raised questions about issues with like the park improvements, things like that. All those items do need to come for the council for improvement, for approval. So on these items, or any items in there, you would need to have approval from the council if it were to stay in. If it's removed, obviously it's out. And then the corresponding tax would, or, you know,
Adjust,
revenue
readjusted.
would adjust. And the last thing is you do need to make sure, and your CFO can comment on this, if you don't pass a budget tonight, I do believe you have to, you may, depending on how long your continuing resolution goes, right now you're funding government through a temporary budget. So we do need to hear from your CFO with regard to what that would mean in terms of being
Okay.
able to continue funding government. Certain items by law, they can fund kind of without, like you can go like a, maybe one pay period. I think there's a rules on how far you can go. It's not much. But there's certain things that you can do without a budget. Otherwise, you're going to need to pass
Pass a
either
temporary.
tonight or come back at a special meeting, or depending on how quickly it is, to make sure you can fund
Okay.
government while the amendments. are passed. So that's legally, that's all the comments I have.
Okay.
Essentially, this is what I had discussed with all of you previously. This would be brought up at our next meeting. I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
I did, but that wasn't, I didn't say anything just now.
Our next meeting is going to be, would normally be Memorial Day. Since it's Memorial Day, it will be that Thursday. We'll be presenting everything at that time.
Is there sufficient time to publish for that Thursday meeting?
Yes, there is.
Okay. All right.
By this Wednesday. Am I correct, Marcy?
So,
It's Wednesday. So at this, you have anything else?
well, what you had just communicated now, Matt, was that just to make sure we clarify with Danelle, exactly, which I think she understands what this amendment that I'm proposing.
Things that the township attorney mentioned. I will need to go through tomorrow to determine how much we have for appropriations and temporary budget to get us through until the 30th, because we do have 2 payrolls coming up. We have obligations, obviously, for insurance. I know we have another payment due for our liability insurance and workers' comp. So I do need to just make sure of that, and I will report back to the mayor where we stand with that tomorrow.
Okay.
If you're going to the amendment as proposed right now, you do need to address the issue of the revenue side. So it's not just an appropriation side. You have the revenue side. If I could, I would like to make the recommendation that you just reduce for property, the sale of property assets, by that same amount, so that it's an even on both sides.
That's 612,000?
Yes,
Okay,
that would be my recommendation.
I think that makes sense, yeah.
Or fund balance, maybe whichever.
That makes sense, that's fine. So then it would be reduced by 50,000 for the school bus, and it would be reduced by 22,500 for the salaries.
Correct. So that amendment would need to include all of that.
Okay.
So that when it's written, because I know that's what needs to be written up. For if you're gonna do the resolution from the floor, that's how it has to be written up to include both sides, so that everything is amended properly, so the DCA accepts it as an amendment. So when it's published, you can actually have your hearing at the next meeting.
Gotcha, okay. All right, that makes sense.
Okay. Do you have we all set?
You need a roll call. Do you need a motion to?
Already been,
I guess.
already been moved and seconded.
Move the second.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to also express the fact that I agree with Natalie and Brad on everything that you've mentioned so far. I do want to say, however, that in the very near future, the mayor, with the job that he's been doing, this next year, if we have this discussion, I will in fact say the stipend should be increased based on everything and the performance and the time. And it's not time, no one's paying anybody for time, we're paying for performance, and he's performing. And I'm seeing some very good things. And I know he's disappointed in the busing situation, but that's not our problem. It's really not. I'd like the kids to have the bus, but somebody else's problem. And we'll continue to research out the proper, I guess, remuneration for stipends for other towns and just taking time to do it. But I'm on board.
I appreciate that feedback.
Just to make sure it is clear, because there was a motion and a second with regard to the reductions in lines. Now, we just talked about where it should come from on the revenue side. So I think just to make sure we're perfectly clear, as Danell mentioned, we should, I guess, make a motion to amend the motion to include just make sure it's on there. So
So,
if you want to
okay.
amend your motion, you can amend your
I'm
motion.
making a motion to amend my motion to amend the budget,
Yes.
to include a decrease in, using funds from the sale of the property. Is that it? Okay. By,
72.
72.5.
Right.
I'll second that.
Seconded by. Motion made by Mrs. Bucieri.
Yep.
So
One, two, four more.
do you have this down so we can read it into the
I
record?
don't know.
I got it. So, yeah.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, so right now, we have, the motion as amended is, as everyone's talked about, is to reduce those two line items. On the appropriation side, and to take it from the revenue side for the sale of the property. So that's what the motion as amended is. And so there should be if you're ready to vote, then there'd be a roll call vote on that. And then if, assuming it passes, then, we'll work to make sure it gets appropriately noticed and sent to DCA and prepared for your next meeting.
Okay.
And I guess then we'll also hear from the CFO with regard to if there's any temporary appropriations as now, and if there's an issue there, then obviously she'll let the mayor know and we'll deal with that.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Yes. Councilmember Bucieri,
Yes.
Councilmember Di Benedetto,
Yes.
Councilmember Higgins,
Yes.
Councilmember Sparta,
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I don't know if it's technically required to have a motion, but I think there should be a motion to carry final action on the budget. I don't know if it's actually required, but
Okay.
just to make sure we
Make sure.
overly motion everything, I think there should be a motion to carry final action on the budget until the May 30th meeting.
May I have a motion
I'll make that motion.
to move continuation of the approval process on the budget to the May 30th meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Bucieri. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Higgins.
Do a roll call vote just to. Sure.
Roll please.
Councilmember Bucieri.
Yes.
Councilmember Di Benedetto.
Yes.
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 President Rizzuto.
Yes.
Carries.
Okay. Thank you. That's right.
For comments?
Thank you.
Sorry, well, that's right. May I have a motion to open the floor to the public?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Bucieri. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Di Benedetto. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. The floor is open to the public for comment on any item which is to be addressed. Anyone here? Wishing to address the council? We have anybody online?
Yes, Jesse Palladini.
Mrs. Palladini?
Yes, I'm going to speak on an issue that you brought up at your last council meeting, because since then I have been subjected to a tremendous amount of ridicule by individuals who claim that you made that comment specifically for me. So I'm going to read a statement, and it is as follows. The Vernon Township Council President was in error on April 22nd and also violated the town's own code for public comment when he announced, "We are going to change how we handle this portion of the meeting." The council president asked that the public restrict their comments to matters concerning the township or its welfare. There is no law that gives the council the authority to make that change. The council attempted to do that in 2011, and the ACLU came to the council and demanded the council give an apology to the citizens of the town. Apparently, the council did not learn that lesson from the ACLU, and perhaps it is time for the ACLU to revisit the council. The ACLU cites, quote, "The public body cannot censor your speech during a public comment portion because it does not agree with you or like what you are saying. The public body also cannot prohibit comments based on subject matter so long as the comments relate to any issue that a member of the public feels may be of concern. Council code specifies there will be a second period of public comment at the end of each council meeting. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes where the public may speak on any topic, which incidentally, Council President Rizzuto just reiterated before I began to speak. State statute NJSA 10:4-2 states, "The public may comment on any governmental issue that a member of the public feels may be of concern to residents of the municipality." While some council members have stated that Mr. Rizzuto's comments were not directed at anyone specifically, at the prior meeting, I had referred to false statements a member of the public made to the council about a township matter. Immediately following the meeting, those same false statements, along with ridiculing a member of the public who spoke at your same council meeting, and I stated that I believed it to be a hate group, which the owner of the group took offense to my calling it a hate group. I just want to finalize by saying my comment was about a township matter. It was about something that took place at a council meeting. And it is ridiculous to even suggest that the council could call for a point of order to stifle such public comment. In the future, should I deem it necessary to make such statements, I will make them again. Thank you for your time.
You're quite welcome. Please understand that I labored quite a while on how to term this statement. At no time did I ask that anybody or mention that anybody was required, obligated, could not, would not, or cannot mention anything about a particular comment. I simply asked voluntary cooperation. By using the words public, restrict its comments to matters concerning the township or its welfare or issues that can be resolved by the administration or the council. If somebody chooses not to cooperate, I can't do anything about it. As far as I know, I don't have a police department that goes around and enforcing this type of thing. It was simply a question of voluntary cooperation. If the person chooses not to follow that, that's okay. If they choose to do so, so be it. So that's my answer to that. Anything else? Anyone else?
No, I don't have any other hands up.
May I have a motion to close the floor to the public?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Bucieri. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Di Benedetto. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Council comments, Mr. Higgins?
Yes, once again, with the budget, COVID resulted in municipalities, school districts, state government increasing their surpluses tremendously. And a lot of it came from the monies from the federal government. Others came from simply not having to spend what was already budgeted for because buildings were closed and people were home. And this town, this council, 3 years in a row, no tax increase, and it was wise use of the surplus money. So I'm comfortable with having 15% in the budget, which is surplus for emergencies. Not comfortable going below 10%, but we're at 15%. And next year, no promises of a 0% tax increase. But I think it was well done, and there's been some constraints on the spending. So I'm happy to be part of that.
Thank you. By the way, I concur. See better that.
Nothing.
Sparta.
I just have one, and I think it's safe to say on May 13th, I can ask this. Is it possible to have a review now of the snow removal with the contractors as opposed to the benefit of the town? Whether it worked out better for us or if the reimbursement to the communities worked out better?
We can meet with the snow removal contractors.
I don't think you need to meet with them. I think it's a financial question. You knew what you reimbursed the communities before. You already had the snowstorms here. You know how much time was spent. Where do we relate financially to using the contractors as opposed to reimbursing the communities? Has nothing to do with the contractors. It's totally a financial question.
It does have to do though with the type of year-to-year storms. So there's that.
You used the storms this year. And you said if we were to reimburse the communities, this is what we would have spent, reimburse the communities. As opposed to, this is what we spent on the contractors. Very easy to do, Dano. Very easy to do.
I can draft those numbers if that's what you're.
That's what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Mr. Bucieri?
No, I'm good.
No, I have no further comments either. So I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public.
Move,
I'm sorry, to close the public.
move.
During the meeting. Moved by Mr. Sparta. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, by Mr. Higgins. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Hey, good night, everyone.
I saw your sheet.
Sorry, you had so many scribbles on your paper.
My gosh, you see it?
I got it. It's like, who's,
That said-
who's doing?
Were you off?
Where's that?
Good.